Here is an ancient depiction of the Greek god Zeus, confronting Typhon. We know it's Zeus because the ancient artist has actually included the name Zeus next to the image of the god. He's raising his thunderbolt weapon overhead. This characteristic deep lunge posture with rear heel raised and powerful weapon overhead is indicative of figures associated with the constellation Hercules in the heavens. Here are the stars of the constellation Hercules, and we can see the same deep lunging posture with rear heel raised and powerful weapon overhead, a nearly exact match with the outline of Zeus in the ancient artwork, which is thought to date to about 450 BC. Here's an image from a Maya codex known today as the Dresden Codex. The European invaders destroyed almost every Maya codex they could find. Indeed, only a very few survived. In fact, we only know of 4 which survived the deliberate destruction. The Dresden Codex is the oldest known surviving codex, thought to have been created in the centuries we call the 1200s or the 1300s, well before the voyages of Columbus. This Maya codex is thought to have been sent back to Europe in the first part of the 1500s, eventually ending up in Dresden, which is why it's today known as the Dresden Codex. It's quite clear that this figure in the Dresden Codex is depicted in the very same characteristic deep lunge posture that indicates the constellation Hercules. Note that this figure from the Maya Codex even appears to be wielding a thunderbolt weapon similar to that wielded by the god Zeus in the artwork from ancient Greece. The conventional paradigm of human history has no way of explaining these similarities between the artwork of ancient Greece and the artwork of pre-Columbian Maya texts from Central America, other than to say that any similarities must simply be pure coincidence. The fact that these thunderbolt-wielding figures can be shown to be patterned on the constellation Hercules, with whom other thunderbolt-wielding gods from other cultures can be shown to be associated, cannot be attributed to mere coincidence. Other thunderbolt-wielding gods associated with this same constellation Hercules include Thor of the Norse myths, Indra of the myths of ancient India, and Shango of the sacred traditions of Africa. And this is by no means an isolated connection between figures of ancient Maya mythology and myths of other cultures. Despite the deliberate and systematic destruction of their culture's heritage by the invaders from Europe beginning in the 15th century, enough ancient Maya artwork has survived to demonstrate beyond any doubt that the very same system which underlies the myths and scriptures of ancient cultures in the so-called Old World also forms the foundation for the sacred traditions of the pre-Columbian Maya. This is a carving found at the Maya site of Bonampak, located in the state of Chiapas in modern-day Mexico. This site is thought to date to the years between AD 580 and AD 800. This is an image of a scene described in Revelation chapter 12, depicting the battle between the archangel Michael and the dragon. This scene can be very clearly shown to be based on specific constellations in the night sky. The archangel Michael corresponds to the constellation Ophiuchus, which is associated with figures who carry spears in many ancient star myths from around the world. The stars of Ophiuchus form a central body, sometimes envisioned as holding a great serpent on either side, hence the name Ophiuchus, or serpent holder. The serpent held by Ophiuchus is often envisioned as 1 or sometimes even 2 spears, particularly the serpent half on the east side of the central body. The goddess Athena, for example, can be shown to be associated with the constellation Ophiuchus, and her chosen weapon, of course, is a long spear. We can be very confident that the Archangel Michael in this scene is associated with Ophiuchus, not only by the frequent depiction of the spear whenever Michael is shown battling the dragon, but also because he's standing directly atop the dragon, and in the night sky the constellation Ophiuchus is positioned directly above the constellation Scorpio, which often plays the role of a great dragon or serpent in ancient myth from around the world, often a dragon or serpent with multiple heads, as indicated in the text of Revelation 12 itself, in which the dragon is described as having 7 heads and 10 horns. And those multiple heads of Scorpio are located on the correct side of Ophiuchus as depicted in traditional artwork of Michael and the dragon. The fact that Michael is almost invariably depicted above the dragon in the exact same relationship as Ophiuchus to Scorpio indicates that Michael is associated with the constellation Ophiuchus when he vanquishes the dragon as described in Revelation 12. The spear, in fact, is usually envisioned as intersecting with the dragon at the very point of the location of the brightest star in the constellation Scorpio, the red giant star Antares. Additional confirmation is seen in the fact that the Archangel Michael is very frequently depicted carrying a scales or balances in his other hand, the hand not holding the spear. In the night sky, the constellation Libra, which is the scales or the balances, is in fact located immediately adjacent to Ophiuchus on the same side as it is invariably depicted in traditional artwork of Michael and the dragon. This same exact celestial pattern can in fact be seen in artwork from ancient Mesopotamia, such as in depictions of the supernatural beings known as the Apkallu, such as this impressive relief found among the ruins of the ancient city of Nineveh. Note that this figure has one arm holding a pine cone-shaped object in an upraised hand. This corresponds to the circular feature on the western serpent half of Ophiuchus. And notice that in this depiction, the Apkallu is holding the famous purse-like or bucket-shaped accessory in his lower hand, in just the right location to correspond to the constellation Libra, the outline of which corresponds very closely to this same shape. You can envision it as a balances, a set of scales, or you can envision it as a bucket or a purse with a handle formed by the outline of the stars. Note also that the Apkallu is envisioned as having wings, just as we saw with the earlier depictions of the Archangel Michael, and also as we saw in the figure of Typhon, with whom Zeus was doing battle in the artwork from ancient Egypt. Zeus corresponding to the constellation Hercules, and Typhon corresponding to Ophiuchus, directly below, with his 2 serpent legs corresponding to the 2 serpent halves of Ophiuchus. These wings were no doubt associated with the same flanking serpent-like stars on the side of the central body of the constellation, particularly on this side, the eastern side. So the pattern of Michael corresponding to Ophiuchus defeating a dragon corresponding to Scorpio is actually just one manifestation of a pattern which can be shown to be based on the stars and which appears in other ancient artwork from other cultures as well. Returning now to the image in the relief carving from the Maya lintel at Bonampak, in this image we can see quite clear parallels with the constellations of Ophiuchus above Scorpio that we just examined in the episode of Michael defeating the dragon. The triumphant warrior in the Maya carving can be seen to exhibit specific details associated with the constellation Ophiuchus. He's standing directly above his vanquished enemy, and he's menacing that fallen enemy using a long spear, precisely the same way Michael is depicted above the dragon. Indeed, the spear is pointing to the very same point on the fallen opponent, corresponding to the constellation Scorpio's brightest star, Antares. And the spear even has kind of a floral decoration near the spearhead, which is not inappropriate for a representation of that bright red star. The warrior standing over the fallen foe also appears to have wing-like designs depicted in the same region where we saw the wings of the Apkallu in the artwork from ancient Mesopotamia. Note also that the victorious warrior has a death's head as a kind of a breastplate, or this skull emblazoned on his chest area. This is a very significant detail in the Maya artwork because, as we noted earlier, the goddess Athena is also associated with the constellation Ophiuchus, and she, of course, is often depicted with the staring, grinning head of Medusa on her breastplate, known as the aegis. That corresponds to this grinning, staring skull on the breastplate of the Maya warrior. Most significant, too, is the fact that this fallen warrior is depicted as having long hair, almost reminiscent of dreadlocks. He's depicted below the Ophiuchus figure, and thus he corresponds to the constellation Scorpio, which we've already seen to have been envisioned as having multiple heads. But in this case, the multiple heads become long dreadlock-like hair. Note that the body of the fallen opponent is angled in very much the same way as that seen in the constellation Scorpio in the heavens. This detail is very significant because we see a very similar depiction in artwork from ancient Mesopotamia in a scene showing the defeat of Humbaba or Huwawa by the twin heroes Gilgamesh and Enkidu. In this scene, the defeated Humbaba is positioned in the same angle as the constellation Scorpio and once again is depicted with the very same dreadlock-type hairstyle seen in the artwork from the relief on the lintel at Bonampak in Central America. This scene, too, can be confidently shown to be based on the very same constellations in the night sky that we've been examining. A defeated figure associated with Scorpio, below two other figures, one associated with the constellation Ophiuchus and the other with the constellation Hercules. In other words, the very same system of celestial metaphor can be shown to form the foundation for scenes from artwork in ancient Mesopotamia, artwork from the pre-Columbian Maya, artwork from ancient Greece, and even artwork depicting a famous episode in the Bible involving the defeat of the dragon by the archangel Michael. And these examples are by no means exhaustive. This very same system can be shown to be at work in the ancient myths and ancient artwork of many other cultures, including ancient India, ancient China, and many others. In fact, the same region of the sky can be shown to form the pattern underlying the famous smiting scenes found in the artwork of ancient Egypt as well. The evidence presented in this video is enough to completely overturn the conventional paradigms of human history we are taught in school, and yet it only just begins to barely scratch the surface of the overwhelming evidence which shows that the world's ancient myths are built upon a common celestial system of tremendous antiquity, predating even the earliest known civilizations of Mesopotamia, Egypt, and ancient India, as well as those of the Americas and elsewhere. This ancient worldwide system may be a legacy of some even more ancient culture, presently unknown to and unacknowledged by conventional academic models.